What's up, everybody? It's the Vendetta Blue Show. I'm Mike Furia, and I'm here today with my partner from Anti-Crime, Talat Awad. Let me tell you. You hear that music, T?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Talat just retired, just like me, the end of January. And I got a feeling it's going to be a good night, like the old days here in Anti-Crime. Now we're retired, and this is something that I always talked about doing. I was gonna write a book, and I did write a book, and I'm in my final stages with that. And I know since I retired, a lot of the stuff that I've put out there is being questioned, and my integrity is probably being questioned, and there's a lot of it's not so transparent what led me to do this. So I just want to clear a few things up and put my character content out there from the person who knows me the best, and a guy that I rode around in the car with every day. And even at the end of our career, we did transit together. So T, you want to tell us a little about yourself?
Yeah, how's it going? Been retired over 2 months now. It's freaking awesome.
It sure is.
Mike, it's the best thing. Like I was nervous at first to retire. I thought I would be a 25-year guy, but circumstances caused me to retire, exactly at 20 years. I don't know if it's jealousy for Mike retiring or what, him pushing me to retire with him. I retired of like 20 days after him and whatnot, but I'm glad I did. Money's not everything. It's just something I tell people all the time. Money's not everything,
Let me stop you real quick, T, because when he says 25 years, me and Steve Nakau, who's supposed to be on with us right now, but he's in Thailand.
Yeah, he's in Thailand. God knows what he's doing over there right now.
God knows. So, but we always said he's a 25-year man, if not longer. So for the job to change the way it did, definitely had an impact, as we see, on all detectives and cops in general leaving the force. And, me and T worked anti-crime together, plain clothes. And unfortunately, this job, when you move up, you have to leave your partner a lot of times. And that's what happened. But we continued to go to the range together every time, for the next 12 years, right?
Yeah.
10 years, whatever it was.
At least twice a year. That's the only time we partnered up. Yeah.
Exactly. Sometimes we did some trainings together. And then the best year of my career, the hardest year, but the best year of my career, was getting to work again with T, doing transit, on the subway together. A few other people that I did also have the pleasure to work with. My first partner, Mike Furia, I got to work with him again. He also worked with T. They called us the Wild Boys. We had a very tight team. I got an anti-crime in 2007 with Mike. T was shortly after. And it was me, Mike Furia, Talat Awad, Steve Nakau, and another guy that's still active.
Yep. We came out the academy together. We got FTU together in the 7-8
together.
Yeah.
Yes. And remember that first day?
Yep.
Right before graduation, I remember asking you, T, you go to the 7-8? I was like, where the fuck is the 7-8?
I don't think either one of us knew where it was at. I had couldn't even Google it back then. No,
no,
we had to get directions.
Probably not. No. So T, you're a Brooklyn boy like me.
Yep.
You grew up in the Brooklyn a little bit before me, and you've seen all the neighborhood change. You were familiar with the area more than I was. You knew the streets. I still can't navigate my way around. That's why you always drove, and I was the runner.
Yep, absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Yeah. So we got to the 7-8 and we just took off running. We both moved up pretty fast. We got to hang up patrol. T was trained by a veteran cop that I guess it's fair to say he wasn't nearly as active as we were, but definitely still taught you a lot of good things.
Yeah, he did. I got to give him credit, man.
Absolutely.
I worked midnights with him, and he taught me a lot of stuff, especially as a new guy. I wanted to be active, so I picked, I partnered up with a fairly active guy. You know what I mean? So
yeah, Paul taught you some stuff, and I kind of jumped around. I don't know who I really worked with in the very beginning. A little bit of everybody, but one person that stands out to me was Matty Gallagher. He was our delegate. He kind of taught me a lot about the job and just how to behave in general as a cop. And I think that meant more than learning the radio runs. And I picked up a little bit from everybody, but just how to act and how to be reliable and dependable to your coworkers. That was something that I learned from Maddie, and his speeches, man, they still stick with me today. Sometimes when I get really fired up, I still kind of hear his voice in my head with the roll call. But for the most part, I think it's also fair to say we weren't really perceived as the heroes coming on as rookies because we moved up faster than a lot of people. So there was definitely some animosity towards us. And that's unfortunate.
That's where the name Wild Boys came from. They didn't like the fact that we moved up so quick.
We were
Especially you got into anti-crime before me.
Right.
They didn't like that fact, and you seeing the animosity way before I did. I heard people talking crap about you and stuff like that. Like, how could you get anti-crime so quick? But it's
from
really
plainclothes training. The minute we got plainclothes training, that was it. They were all over us.
Yep.
So and all we wanted to do was move up. I mean, it wasn't nothing. We weren't trying to show anybody up. There was a pair of cops, two pairs of cops actually, that were partners before me. I'll say their names. Eddie Lau, he's the CEO of the 6-2 precinct, and his partner was Wilson Ortiz, who's also up there in rank. These guys were running around together, and then after them, there was Rory Mangra. I believe he's a captain, great guy. And Eric Marizaldi was another guy he worked with. And now these 4 cops, they kind of paved the way for us. We knew that if they could get through it, we could go through it too. Again, these guys were older than me. I literally started at 21, so I don't know how I did what I did at that age, because looking back, I was a different person. I was a different person.
Yeah.
So now, they're paving the way. I'm working with my first partner, Mike, and eventually we got the call. I actually had a good boss at that time. His name was Pete Miller. Very controversial. I know T's gonna laugh a little bit. Guy was a loose cannon. He's a very nice guy, though. Nice guy, but
he's a nice guy.
Absolutely, but he was very old school, and I think that me and Mike looked at it as, if we take care of this guy, he's going to take care of us. And he did. We had the unmarked car. We were driving around doing robbery autos steadily every day. And that the amount of hatred we got for that. But without that opportunity, we would have never made anti-crime, because unfortunately back then it was a quota-driven job. We rode a lot of bicycles on sidewalks, and unfortunately that's how we got into anti-crime. Yeah, I made good burglary arrests. That was the 7-8 precincts. Bread and butter was the burglaries. And definitely I remember arresting Michael Smith Baker, who was the top 10 burglars back then. And, it was kind of dumb luck, but, some notable arrests, but mostly it was our enforcement writing summonses that got us to where we were. So now I paved the way, me and Mike, and shortly after, Awad and his partner at the time were able to come down. And, about a year or so later, me and Awad started working together due to a little bit of bad luck on my old partner's part. Yeah. But, it worked out for the best at the end of the day. Everybody's happy.
Bad luck of him busting his ass, though. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah. The guy totally busted his ass.
Got hurt. Yeah.
And, it was a great thing. And then me and Awad started working together. And I think we just literally hit the ground running. From day one, we had a good chemistry. He drove most of the time. I was out there on foot like a maniac, following people around in some crazy weathers, right, Awad?
Yep. What was Steve doing, though?
Steve was in the back, either saying, "Take me to Mataras," or sleeping, or, But we definitely had our share of fun and our share of, police work. When we had to do it, we did it. And, we also dealt with a lot of negative aspects of this job. I mean, I think we were definitely part of the quota scandal with our lieutenant.
10-15 and 2?
10-15 too. Good. I'm glad you said that. It's definitely something that I speak about in my book, Finest My Ass. It's definitely something that mentally and even physically stressed me out to I can't even see those numbers sometimes.
Yeah,
When
pay the
it,
rent.
pay the rent. It brings me right back to those days. I literally used to get marks on my arm from getting so angry, and I don't even understand like how things
Cashing in my
transpired.
chips.
Cashing in my chips. Yeah, there was a time we were doing overtime, and he came over to us right at the beginning of our tour. I was like, "Listen, guys, I'm gonna cash in my chips tonight. I really need you guys to get us some summonses."
Yep.
As if we weren't gonna, because we did every time when we had to write our summonses. We did. We were very reliable and we made it happen. So for him to say that was kind of a slap in the face. And the biggest slap in the face is great arrest after great arrest. We did what he asked us to do. He changed our tour every single day. The guy. We had a running joke that his daughter was picking our tours. She was a baby, and she probably was. But at the end of the day, when it was time for him to move on in his career, you remember him saying bye, T?
Nothing.
Not even a goodbye.
Better.
And we were working for a CO. When we needed a CO's rec, it wasn't available.
It was held for a month.
Yep. Do you guys need it in the beginning of the month? I'll have it for you by the end of the month. That's how it went down. And literally, it took us from 2007 to 2013 to get into the squad. And we've seen so many people that we came out with and came out after us go on to the squad long before we did.
Yeah.
And we used to go to the anti-crime borough meetings, and we would be like in disbelief that the late Chucky Scholl would tell us, anti-crime is a stepping stone. So you guys should be going to the squad eventually or some other investigative unit. Now, I had put in for everything, and you did, also special victims. We put in for warrants. I put in for narcotics twice. I put in for several different units. I even got desperate. I put in for personnel orders. And of course, I put in for facial recognition. In 2011, when it was first started, I put in for so many units, and we seen nothing but pushback. It was very disheartening, and I don't know how we were able to continue to do and produce the way our production never dropped. And if we had a slow month, we heard about it. They were right on us. You guys got to pay the rent. John's looking. Our old boss used to talk like this. John's waiting for you guys to make a collar.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of nonsense that we dealt with.
And making the workers shovel snow,
Yeah. Yes.
While,
we were the workers.
While rookies and new guys and people that don't do anything they were actually just laughing at us.
Absolutely.
Remember us while we were shoveling in front of the precinct?
The stuff,
we were getting mocked and everything. It is what it is.
Right. The stuff that they used to do to us, it was just, it was ridiculous. But ultimately, we finally got that call, and we didn't look back. First, what do you think of the 21-year-old Mike Furia?
Mike
Furia.
Compared to now?
Yeah,
not for nothing. Like, you were very outgoing when you were 21 years old, and everything like that. Me and you, we used to argue all the time. I used to see this as a career. You were like, it's just a job type thing. Mm-hmm. But you always did the best at what you tried. You always tried your best. Like, no matter what, even if you didn't like the boss or you didn't like anything, like, sometimes I would suggest, let's shut down or whatever, but we still, instead of shutting down, we showed them more. We worked harder. For some reason, we worked harder. We're upset. We're trying to show them off. Worked harder. You always helped me push through. Again, you were the computer guy. You always, any kind of collar, gun collar, you would come in on your own time if you were on vacation. Remember that one?
Mm-hmm.
You came in on your own time. You came and you processed the whole arrest. Basically, we were done in no time. Like in 3 hours, we processed the whole collar and we were done.
Yeah,
so
that was,
you were very reliable, like even at a young age, like not for nothing. I'm not saying, you were young. You can't say you were immature. You weren't. You were young, but people just saw your age as a young guy and do certain things, and you didn't let them, win. You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah, I mean, that was something that I was all in. Some of the best arrests that we made was when we were able to just like kind of shove it down their face, like, yeah,
Yep.
you
I
thought that
think
we weren't going
that's
to get shit today, but now here, look
yeah.
what we got. You know,
And
we
that's what pushed you, I think, even more. I think that's what made
absolutely
you even more. Like I think it's the to show them that we belong where we are. You know what I mean?
right.
And you kept, they kept giving you the pushback, and like you said, we kept being held up for promotions, anything like that. And I
Mhm.
think it followed you through your career. It's unfortunate, you know what I mean? It's not, there's always, certain people, they just, you know, they don't like a hard worker. They
Mhm.
want you to just tag along.
So
And I
now,
think that's what happened with you. You hit a streak of bad luck of having bosses, I guess, that wanted you to just, you know,
fall in
work the
line.
minimum and rely on them to do stuff, but where, you were the one that was doing everything, So
Right. Right. But so you would definitely agree that, I mean, a lot of my facial career. I tell you 99% of the stuff that happens. We have our
yeah.
group chat. We have a running group chat, me, T, and Steve, since before we were separated in anti-crime. We've been have a chat over
Mm,
10, 15 years.
yeah.
So they, he knows all my stories and everything. And, he knows how in facial identification, I used to work 24 hours a day. I would work from home on a case. And that's something a good detective does in the squad. You want to stay committed to your case. And
Yeah.
you don't want to make it something that's going to fall back on everybody else because they got their own shit to deal with. They don't want to,
Yeah.
have to piggyback you. So, like you said, I came into work on my day off. It was actually my vacation to help you with a gun collar, just
Yeah.
because I know the stress of processing a collar in Brooklyn. It wasn't that he couldn't do it. It wasn't, we knew how to make collars in and out. But number one, it was a celebration of hard work. I mean, guns didn't come every day in the 7-8. Number two,
No.
it goes a lot smoother when you got people that could do different things. One guy does the voucher, another guy did the Omni, and then we had the guy dealing with the prisoner. So it was a great feeling. We definitely were very team oriented, and that's something that I took with me throughout my whole career. We definitely learned from each other.
Yeah.
So that's why now at 41, I am definitely he hit the nail. I was mature back then, but I think about the bigger picture more, and I kind of pull back a little
Hold
bit.
back. Yeah, you hold back. Yeah, of
I hold
course.
back, and last year I
You
had
didn't hold back before. That's
right.
absolutely. You didn't hold back.
Sometimes I do lose control of that, but nowhere near as back then. I mean, last year was tough for me, but I did at the end show and display a tremendous amount of restraint when a lot of other people probably would have handled things differently. And that, I definitely could. I say it in multiple videos. I say it at my wedding. I said it at his retirement. He's been like a big brother to me, and I learned a lot from him. So now we already
We
kind
learn
of
from each
touched.
other, Mike. Not for nothing.
Absolutely.
Like,
Yeah, no, definitely.
you taught me a lot,
Hmm. You kind of touched it, but do you think that it took too long for us to get into the squad?
Absolutely. Not for nothing. Like, I understand, like, the way what you said. It's not took too long. There's no really set amount of years when to get to the squad. But when you see people that did less work than you, get to the squad with less time than you,
Hmm.
and then you start second guessing. And I think the main thing of why it took us so long to get to the squad, it wasn't, I think it's of us, of the Rex, the CO Rex not getting signed in time.
Hmm.
But you remember we used to take them and they would be like, listen, we're done with the interviews by now. By the time we get it signed, the interviews are already done. Like, we just had, a CO that didn't want to, that didn't want to sign off on Rex. I think that's what delayed us. I don't think anybody held us back. I think we did hard work from the beginning of our careers, even on patrol. Like you said, you did, Rob Auto and all that stuff.
Right.
I
Right.
worked midnights, made collars every weekend. It wasn't like you said. It's a 7-8. You're not making gun collars every day, but you made collars. You were active.
Mhm.
So it
Yeah.
wasn't. It wasn't. It was
But
just bad
in,
luck that we had.
in comparison to what we've seen the last couple of years, 5 to 6 years in anti-crime.
Yeah.
Now we don't see that no more. You
No.
definitely in the squad seen white shields come in with less time than that.
I got white shields coming in with 4 years on, straight
Right.
from patrol, not even doing anti-crime. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Nothing. I'm not knocking those cops or anything like that. It's the way the job became.
Right.
They want people, and some people even went up without interviews. And it's who you know,
Right.
and that's how this job became. It's who you know, and it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Right.
And it has nothing. I don't have anything against the guys that got in there. Don't hate the player, hate the game.
Absolutely.
But that's how it is. That's what this job became. And I think that's us, complaining about, talking about it, and things like that starts making you realize how much this job changed from the beginning of our career. And you're telling me your stories, I'm telling you my stories. That's how we realized this job really changed over the years. And we used to get these, you remember in the academy they used to teach us, you can get these hair bags saying this job sucks. This job is not the way it used to be. I'm
Hmm.
not saying the job sucks, and up to now, I don't say the job. I think it's who's running this job. It's the
Right.
people that cause this animosity in the office, that cause these problems. Certain people, just because you took a test, should not be a supervisor. That's it. That's how I see
Absolutely.
it. I got
Absolutely.
lucky. I got some great supervisors in my career. I never had any major issues with any supervisors. And I think I'm lucky because any supervisor that I worked with, other cops say that they're good supervisors. It's not like, I just get along with every supervisor. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And, your luck became, you had a bad luck with supervisors that, they get under your,
Yeah. Yeah.
under your
Definitely.
skin. So,
I mean, you knew one of them. Our first real anti-crime boss. You knew him.
yeah.
The guy,
Yeah.
with me and him, I don't know, not go good together at all. Yeah,
Because he was young. He was young also. Don't forget, he was a 5 year wonder.
right,
5 years on, he became a sergeant. He had
yeah,
problems when he was a cop with other cops that didn't like him, and I
right.
think that's what caused him thinking that he's going to be a tough supervisor. Instead of taking care of his guys, he started being an asshole.
Yeah,
So some guys,
I wasn't gonna go into it, but uh, you knew I hated him. And the funny thing is,
I was the middleman between you guys, though.
absolutely, you were the middleman, and I think I had the right to hate him. You know, I also didn't have as much, uh, understanding back then as I do now. I probably would have been able to tolerate him a little better at this age, but I was a young guy, and the first thing that kind of set me off was I was doing a narcotics envelope and signing my name, and he tells me that I didn't leave him enough room for him to sign his name, which
I
was, come
remember
on,
that
how
one.
much time do you need? How much room do you need to sign your name? And it wasn't that. You want to yell at me, fine, no problem. I could take criticism. We criticized each other all day long in the car, but
Yep.
but he tells me, you're not impressing me. And now I had been an anti-crime before he was.
Yep.
I'm not impressing. Who the fuck are you? I told him that.
I remember.
Who the fuck are you that I gotta impress you? Are you my father? Who the fuck are you? Oh, whoa, 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 Mike, but and then he put Mike in uniform, and I was like, well, where's my fucking foot post? Just so much shit. How were you able to deal with it better than I was? I mean, I couldn't handle it.
The thing is, like, again, he was a midnight sergeant. He came as a midnight sergeant. He didn't like my old partner Paul because they were in the academy together.
Mm-hmm.
So they were bumping heads. So we were on midnights. He came on midnights, and him and Paul were bumping heads.
Right.
And certain situations, I ended up being the middleman between them. So I guess he took a liking to me,
Yeah.
and that's what when he went into anti-crime, he took me into anti-crime
Right.
because of that, because I guess he saw that. I guess he saw that for him being an asshole, I'm the one who's. I should have been a fucking delegate. You know what I mean?
You were our
Because
delegate in crime.
I'm always trying to avoid, people going at it, even
You
in the
you
elevator
were.
with the, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
always the middle guy, and
Let,
I'm
let's
lucky I never got sucker punched, by accident by me jumping in the middle between you or a supervisor or
yeah.
another cop, but you
Let's
didn't take anybody's shit, and I was, I guess, like you said, a bigger brother. I was your older brother, and I
mhm.
made sure, it doesn't get to the point where, some of these people will end up not just ending it where it's at and it's
Right.
over. They'll end up going to IAB, making a complaint, all this kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And while I was with you, nobody did that, but shit happened. I guess I wasn't there.
You weren't there, man. You were not there when I needed you. You were not there. I got stuck with Jeffrey, who never even they didn't even recognize that he was there. But yeah, you mentioned the elevator incident there. So I don't want to talk about it because I actually respect the guy now. But
No, he's a good guy. Yeah.
we were in plain clothes, and me and this uniform cop, we didn't get along. Every time I walked past him, he used to go, psh, psh. So I told him, what do you got, a fucking slow leak? Like, what's the problem? I don't know. He didn't like it. I dealt with that for a little while. One day we're on a gun run in the projects. We're going up the elevator, and he's staring at me, and I'm staring at him in a real small elevator with fucking piss puddles on both sides of the room.
Yep.
He had headphones on, and I said to him, what are you looking at? And he says, what the fuck you going to do about it? And that was it. Don't tell me that shit. Like, I don't know why people try that shit. He was bigger than me. He was older than me. And, I took action to that. And he took action back. I'm not saying he didn't. And that was the end of it, though. And that's something I respect.
It ended in the elevator. That's what I'm saying.
At the end of that, the late, great, rest in peace, Dave Maduro was there. He was there, and I walked over to this guy, and I told him, I said, listen, whatever happens, done, and this ends here. There was no IAB calling. There was no fucking, this is two cops fighting in an elevator in the projects. God knows what happened on that gun run because we marked the 90X. So, but at the end of the day, that's how things were handled back in 2009, 10, whatever it was. So what is, but in comparison to the boss, that we were talking about, you definitely handled it better. You had a sense of responsibility and also a sense of appreciation that he took you into anti-crime. This is a guy that, I hated working with him because he did get me in trouble. He gave away a bicycle. Everybody knows the story. The guy he's driving in an unmarked vehicle after he forced me to do overtime with him, and he hits a bicyclist. Long story short, he brings the guy and his bicycle back to the precinct. He gives them a vouchered bicycle that we had in the basement. And 91, non-crime corrected. My boss told me he took care of the situation. Long story short, the guy comes in the next day or whatever, and he wants his original bike back. That led to IAB calls, and now shit's rolling downhill. And he lost 60 days for it. But the worst part about it was I got failure to report police corruption in my folder, and I heard about that every interview I went on. And it was unfortunate because what did I do? I didn't call IAB on my boss that I didn't like. I didn't like the guy, so I wasn't protecting him. He didn't buy me.
We never thought of that. That's what I'm saying. When shit happens.
I hated the guy's guts, and I would never.
Never an option. That was never an option for us.
Never an option.
You know what I mean?
Never an option. So, I get that. That's done. He never makes it up to me. He don't buy me a pizza. He don't do anything. Things happen. I guess it is what it is. He protected himself. He would have been in way more trouble, but he had told the lieutenant about it, and that was a smart move on his part because he couldn't get the proper punishment, and probably would have been a demotion. Today, God knows what would have happened to him. So,
they had to take care of the white shirts,
So
That's why it didn't get that bad,
Right. I never really forgave him for that, and I think I was justified in that. And then I seen some of the other stuff he did. He always wanted us to make bullshit collars, and we were fully capable of doing our own, work and producing our own proper numbers and whatever. And then he worked with one of our coworkers, Rob. I'll get into that a little bit. And in my opinion, he was probably the first bully that I met in the NYPD, or at least as a supervisor, tried to be a bully. And, way before YouTube and podcasts and all this stuff, I challenged him on Facebook Live to Smoker during a Smoker. All his narcotics guys were reaching out to me. They loved me. It was great. I never heard from him. The guy pretends I don't exist. But if he's watching today, I want him to know I worked for assholes worse than you later on in my career. So you were just something that prepared me. And there's a book out there. Uh, I can't think of the name right now, but it's about that. It's about the things that we have to see. We have to go through certain things to become who we're gonna become.
Yep.
And he was definitely something that I had to go through. So it kind of prepared me for later on in my career. But it's just funny because he
But
knew.
again, like not in his defense or anything,
Mhm.
he was an asshole to you in all this situation, but he never. I don't think, like you said,
Never
you
put us
he
on
prepared.
paper.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
So he could have done a lot worse, and
Hmm.
now you started working with supervisors that actually didn't
Did
give a
worse.
shit,
Yeah.
did worse than what he would have done. So now you see him as not as bad. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And I think there's a certain respect you got to give a person, even though if he's an asshole and he was, like you said, a bully or whatever it is. But he never tried to hurt the person,
Right.
like in his career. You know
Right.
what I mean? He used to always sign out Rex. He used to always try to take it to the CO. You know what I mean? He wasn't that kind of guy. I'm not trying to, pat him on the back or anything like that. I think
Right.
that's
Right.
what a supervisor should do. But then you came across some real asshole bosses.
Absolutely.
I got lucky with my bosses, and like from my supervisors in the squad, because I just went straight from anti-crime to the squad. I didn't move around that much, and I
Hmm.
stayed in the squad. I'm a creature of habit. I liked what I did,
Hmm.
and I worked hard. And I had my supervisors, they appreciated it, and I got lucky. I think that's what a lot of cops is, especially this
Right.
day. I'm not saying to, oh, great job, all this kind of stuff. They appreciate it by leaving you alone. If you need a
Hmm.
day off, they know that you're a hard worker. They'll give you the day off. That's all we're looking for. We're not looking for, hey, great job, pat on the back. We're not looking for that. You know what
And
I mean?
that's
Appreciation. That's it. Appreciation by, guess what? You need a day off, family situation. You're always getting taken care of, and that shows their appreciation that way. You know what I
right.
mean?
Right.
And that's what it is. Some people don't, like I said, it's just a test, and some people should not be supervisors all the way up the ranks. You know what I mean? Some people, they just take tests. They good at memorization, and are good at taking tests. But should they be
Hmm.
a supervisor? Should they be a supervisor to people that make arrests where they never made arrests in their career? I
No.
don't think so. And I think that's the
No.
problem with this job.
And I think Rob, nailed it. And you've seen the text messages that he sent me and stuff. When he says that guy is always going to be upset because he never got the greatest shield in the world, and that's
Yeah,
the shield that you and I wore.
yeah.
I think that
We
really
wore it
bothered him.
proud, man. We
Yeah,
wore it
absolutely.
proud, and it is the greatest shield in the world.
Hmm.
And that's another story. Like, I don't want to get into it,
Totally
but
other. Yeah,
that,
absolutely,
that shield is diminishing because they're giving it to everybody now. So the shield
absolutely.
doesn't mean anything anymore. You
And
know
that
what I mean?
brings me to my next question. When you think of the struggle and everything that we went through, how does it make you feel knowing that the shields are just given away now? Community affairs, non-investigative positions, non-enforcement, just community affairs gets promoted more than
Yeah,
squads do.
yeah.
Like how does that
Listen,
feel? Like
yeah. My take on it is, listen, everybody, there's people that do great jobs at certain things that on this job. You know what I mean?
Mhm,
I'm not knocking people in community affairs. I'm not knocking anybody that, whatever it is that they do, NCOs or like whatever units that they end up getting a shield. I'm not knocking the cop. I'm sure they busting their ass on that job, but I do not think it should be a detective shield.
mhm,
I think it should be a higher paying white shield. Either change a gold white shield. It's weird, like a gold police officer shield, but it shouldn't be detective. Detective, the definition of detective is to investigate. If you never investigated, how could you be a detective? You know what I mean? That's how I
exactly.
see it. I think, yeah, they deserve it. They should get the same pay as us. I don't care about the pay. It's a detective should not, they should not have a detective because it says detective, and in order to be a detective, you should be an investigator. You shouldn't
Right,
just, you could get paid just like us, but it shouldn't be a detective shield. It could be some other shield that they could get.
right.
And that's my take on it. It's I don't,
Something
you know,
something that I always say is what kind of detective has never interrogated a criminal or even spoken to a complainant in an
Yeah.
interview room or the interrogation room? You know, like you watch TV, you watch SVU, you watch all these shows. How could you call yourself a detective and still convince yourself and try to convince other people that you deserve a promotion more than the people that are actually doing detective work?
Yeah.
That to me, you know, it kills me.
That's what
And
I'm saying. It shouldn't be a detective shield.
right,
Listen, they could give them any kind of shield. They could even get paid more than me. I don't care. It could be a shield that gets paid more than the detectives. I don't care. Because if they appreciate what they do, give it to
right,
them. But
right,
don't give them a detective shield. A detective shield it should be investigators. That's it.
right,
That's how I see it.
absolutely. Now, that it drove me nuts working in real time, because I went from doing all that stuff, being a detective and interrogating criminals and stuff, to now working mainly on a computer and still contributing to the arrest process. But I worked with a lot of people that never did that. And they looked at me as the enemy because I did have that experience. And it became like a like literally a plot against me for having that knowledge. And I
That's
thought,
exactly. Yeah.
and I'm pretty sure you thought when I first went, when I told you I was going to real time, it's kind of, people took it as like that was a step up. I thought I was gonna,
Yeah.
excel faster than if I would have stayed in the squad, because I was, specializing in something. I had computer background. I was finally getting the opportunity to use it. I thought it was a good move, but in hindsight, it wasn't. So,
Listen, like I know you had bad luck with it and everything like that and facial,
mhm,
but you know that's I don't know if you want to bring it up or whatnot, but in facial recognition, you already knew what you were doing with facial. Like you knew the
mhm,
programs. You were always good at that. You even did it when we were in anti-crime. You used to enhance photos. You used to do certain things that no anti-crime cop or even cop used to ever think of doing. You belong in that spot,
right,
and it's unfortunate that you had the bad situations that happened to you over there that caused you to hate it, but at the same time it's something that you could carry with you for the rest of your life, that what you did on this job, how many people you helped. And that's how I'm always I always look to what you did, even though the job itself didn't appreciate it. But I'm sure it sounds kind of stupid, but you help people,
yeah,
by
yeah.
catching the criminals. God
And
knows what
and
if
I
this
help
guy
great
didn't get caught.
detectives. And
Yeah,
I help.
yeah.
I gave you some
You
matches too,
still
right?
you still investigating. You still got a bad guy off the streets, right?
Mhm.
From doing the facial, you still doing that work. So it's a good spot in facial recognition, even real time. You assist detectives, and especially you coming from the squad. You know what we're looking for. So
It was
you have
easy.
the experience from the squad, and you could use the database and the things that you have in real time to help us. And that's why in real time or anything like that, it should be a squad guy.
Hmm.
It should be somebody that already did investigations to know, hey, these guys are on a shooting. This is what they're gonna be looking for. Instead of not
Right,
knowing what they're gonna be looking for, and for us to ask you, hey, could you check this? Could you check that? You already know what we're looking for, and that way it makes our job easier, and it gets the main job objective done, to try to get these perps.
right, right, right. Now you kind of actually nailed it for me. That was two questions ahead. I was going to ask you. You remember when I used to use retired detectives? Well, he wasn't retired yet, but I used to use his photo manager codes, and I would go
Yeah,
on the lineup view, and I would use the facial rec. You remember
yeah,
that, all right?
yeah.
1 second, T. I want to show you something real quick. We'll get back to that. You don't see him? Hold on. Let's
Yo,
see. You hear
Oh,
him?
it's Mike.
Yeah, that's Mike.
Oh shit.
yes,
What's
sir.
going on, Mike? Mike is live in action here.
What's up, Mikey?
Now, this is the original,
Ooh, ooh, ooh.
Wild Boys right here. Give us a quick story about the old 7-8 anti-crime days.
Let's see. We had a couple of pussy bosses.
All right, Mike's phone sucks. But yeah, so anyway,
He has the Obama phone.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, no, you definitely remember the Photoshop and the photo manager. Remember, I actually ran that guy one time. One of the burglars that we were looking for. He had glasses. I think I put glasses on him and ran him in the software and gave us good old Chucky. And
Yep.
we couldn't tell at the time. I wasn't even 100% confident. I remember showing the boss, we weren't 100%. But then years later, when I was looking through my files, I tried again, and modern facial recognition software actually brought him up. It was him, So
Yeah, see?
I was doing this back when the unit was just started. They didn't even have access to that yet. They were trying to use their own software before HIDA let them use what Photo Manager is today. But you saw me run, jump, punch, kick. You seen me outrun bicyclists on foot.
Yep.
Would you say that I was a leader on the job? And what skill did I have that stands out, reflecting on our career?
You were definitely a leader on the job. You always took control of the situation. You never stood to the side and just waited for somebody else to handle the job or whatever it is like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, what was the second part of the question?
Looking back, what do you think stands out reflecting on our career about me? Was it the computer work, or was it, the anti-crime, or just being who I am?
But just all together, if you put it, the computer work with the anti-crime and with investigations or whatever it is like that, it just made it all connect the dots. You know what I mean? It wasn't just one specific thing that made you good at your job. You know what I mean?
And you
did
also
it all.
knew.
I'm not trying to like I'm not trying to make you sound like a saint or whatever, but any job that you did, you always tried your hardest at doing. And I think that came, from, how you were brought up. Always do the best that you could. You never from something small. Remember the sneaker guy? We
Oh,
went all over. We
my
went all over
favorite.
all over. We even went to another command to try to get
Yeah.
the sneaker guy. It was a small crime, but that's it. You felt like we need to get this guy.
Yeah,
So
no, I was dead set on that case because, to me, that's what detective work is. Yeah, we were an anti-crime. We were just officers. We should have been specialists at that point. We should have been detectives that were specialized in plainclothes. And I think we both probably would have stayed doing that the rest of our career. We were great at it. We loved it. We loved being on the streets. I think putting us in an office was actually an injustice to what the work we were doing.
Yeah.
But we got good at that nevertheless. But yeah, so we find a guy that stole one sneaker and we stopped him. And, we
didn't have a complainant yet.
We didn't have a complainant. So we had to go around and just find the store first that, we had an idea what Foot Locker or Foot Action it could be. And we drove by, we asked, we let them know, we looked at the video. And sure enough, the next day we were out hanging out by the methadone clinic because we stopped him and we seen him with a sneaker and we had his ID and we knew he had a benefit card. We went to the Social Security. We went everywhere. And we waited there literally till he got his methadone. And we finally got him. It took us a few times. And yeah, unfortunately, it was just petty larceny. And honestly, that's followed me throughout my whole career because even in facial, my best work was always bullshit crimes. And I don't know that maybe that's just how it is in, police world. But some of my best work was always bullshit crimes. If it was homicides, maybe I would have got the recognition I deserved. But I did have 206 homicide identifications that nobody gave a fuck about. It's a whole different story. But, that's how we were. And I guess you're right in saying that it's a combination of everything. And then, you knew a lot of the detectives that I worked with in the 7-8 squad because you were a cop there.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure I was, I rose to the top of those guys pretty quick. I was good in the squad. I was great in the box. I really think the work I did in the box was phenomenal for the amount of time I was there. I had some big cases. Definitely had. I was leading. Me and Andy Suarez were leading an arrest back then. Two young, motivated guys. He got promoted second grade. 2015 was my last year in the squad, and I was already doing that caliber work. So, funny question for you, real quick one. Was I always a 20 and out guy?
from day one, bro. From day one, you already had that calendar, the countdown on your phone from day one. From day
Right.
one, you're always ready to leave at 20 years. I was always like trying to tell you we could do more than 20 years, and you were like, not even a day past 20 years, I'm gonna stay, no matter what.
Mhm.
And you even said, no matter what they offer me or whatever it is, I'm leaving at 20 years.
Yeah.
And you did.
To the
Exactly
day, to the
to the
minute,
day.
not a
You know?
second more.
I actually think the reason why you wanted 20 years and out is
Mhm.
it's you know that there's more in life than just this job. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And you knew it from the beginning. Like you didn't want to continue doing, to be, at a much older age, still working the same job or whatever it is. And I think that's like everybody that took this job, the the reason why they took this job is what was the selling point to get you on the job? 20 years and you
Oh, yeah,
retire. You
absolutely.
know what I mean? So a
Mhm.
lot of people, they know they just have to do 20 years on the job and then they could retire and they could move on to something else.
Right. And now,
And yeah, now it's like some people they can't. Their finances are not in the right spot or anything like that. They can't just leave at 20 years. Some people
mhm.
have, and some people ending up being in good spots or, making good money or taking promotions and all that stuff. And they stay longer. Like my brother just retired yesterday. You know what I mean?
Right.
He
Right.
did 24 years. He was a lifer too, but he
Mhm.
decided that, it was time to call it quits, spend some time with the family, do some things, You want to spend time like I had kids at a young age before I got on the job, right? I already
Mhm.
had two kids before I got on the job. Then I got three more, so I have five
Yeah.
kids, and my daughter's married. I have grandkids. She was
Mhm.
4 years old when I got
Oh.
on this job. Now she's married and she has two kids on her
Right.
own, and I saw her life flash by. I don't have any good memories because of this job with
Right.
her. So
Yeah.
now I don't want to lose that with my daughter Layla. She's the youngest one. She's 6 years old.
Mhm.
A huge gap between them, but I want to make sure I'm there for her and make sure I'm there for the rest of the kids that are still around before
Right.
it's too late.
Yeah.
And I
Definitely.
think, yeah, this job keeps you, you're always chasing, either overtime, you're always making calls, you're getting phone calls, all this kind of stuff.
Mhm.
You don't have time to, do things with your kids and do certain things. I'm sure you could do certain things, but you know how fast it goes. You're counting
Yeah.
the overtime. 1 month goes by, then the next month, before you know it, it's summertime. We're almost in summer right now.
Yeah. It flies by,
We
and
were just we were just on a football in transit in the summer, sweating our balls off.
yeah.
So
I mean, I know I told you this before, probably during transit or whatever, but I got to give you a lot of credit for all that you did do with a family, because at that time I was a single guy. Plenty of girls, but they came and went, and you got to hear those stories. But now that I have a family, I'm married, and everything, it's definitely hard to deal with
yeah,
the struggles that this job presents, and especially if you're like me, who I think we could both agree, I take this job home with me.
yeah.
Uh, Definitely hard
I
to
used to yell at
handle.
you. I'll be like, "Why do you have your laptop? Why are you working at home? Why are
Exactly,
you, And
but I loved it. I loved it.
yeah,
I was out to prove something, and that was my downfall. That maybe I cared too much, but it definitely took a mental toll on me. And it's if you're a single guy and you're watching this, and now's the time to do things, because when you settle down and you have a family, it only gets harder. And I have to commend T for this, because I watched him do this with a family, and I used to say, "Oh, why does T need to take off?" Because I never took off. Why
yeah,
does T need this? And now I see why. I mean, it took me a long time, but it's tough. And
yeah,
we know definitely the downfalls of the mental struggles. Unfortunately, we lost our teammate Rob Cedeno.
yeah.
Uh, Unfortunately, he committed suicide on Halloween in 2013 in front of the 6-6 precinct. We never really got a reason to why, but when we found out, we were the first ones there. We went out there. Rob was a funny guy. Good teammate. He was a little bit of a scammer. We
He got along with everybody though. That guy
got along with
know?
everybody. He was
Nobody hated him.
totally the opposite of me. He
Nobody
didn't have an enemy in the world.
Yeah.
I think his downfall.
Except one. Except one. The CO. That's
the
it.
CO of the 6-6, correct. But I'll definitely say that he was definitely the opposite of me. He didn't have an enemy in the world. He would go and whatever the boss needed, and I think the bosses
He'll give you the shirt off his back, bro.
Right.
He never, yeah, bro. He's
and
one guy.
Even the ones that he got along with, kind of took advantage of that. Confusing kindness for weakness, and Rob will do it. Don't worry, Rob will make the collar, and I think that became too much for him to handle. Then when he got to the squad, the thing that always sticks out in my head is he was having such a hard time, and he literally texted me a few hours before this happened saying, how do you run an ICAD? So little things like that would stress Rob out. And I think that some cops, suicide is definitely something that happens in the NYPD far too much now. And we got to experience the effects of it. I think it bothered us for a while. I can't imagine how we would have moved forward if we were still doing anti-crime together as a team, and having to deal with that. But at that point, we were both in the squad. We met up that night after we went to the 6-6. We went back to our office in the 7-8. Our old office in the 7-8. We were in our old terrain, as a family. We reunited. Steve was there with us. And the CO of the 7-8 was Inspector Amiri at the time, who later on committed suicide himself. So the guy that was there to console us also committed suicide, and he wasn't a bad guy. He actually was the guy that signed my recommendation to go to the squad.
Bro, he signed it, not for nothing. He signed it as soon as we handed it to him. Signed it and handed it back.
And the guy before him literally knew us for years and just charaded around and, made us wait and wait and wait and wait. So it's just a shame that this job does these things to us and has this negative downfall. And there's always somebody to call, but at the same time, you're going to be scrutinized when you do reach out for help. I think of Rob all the time. You know that we always talk about it. We see people that look like Rob that are cops, and even during transit, we used to see people like, oh man, look at that guy, he looks like Rob, or whatever. And just a terrible thing. So we've seen everything working together. From criminals to tragedies like this, and we have our own problems in our families and stuff, and we have bad times and good times. And again, you were at my wedding in DR, so we had. We literally touched everything from the job to family to everything.
Personally, and that's something we gotta give to the job.
Absolutely,
we would have never crossed paths, probably. You know what I'm saying? So it creates a new family for you. You know what I mean? And no matter what, now I have a brother for life. You know what I'm saying? So it's not. I know it has its downfalls and everything like that, but there's something good about it.
Right.
You know what I mean? The pension is not bad, and plus,
thanks to transit.
And the people you work with, they end up being family for life. You know what I'm saying? And that's a big plus. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I'm gonna try to convince you to move to Texas when I move down there. You know what I'm saying? And we'll see what happens over there. We'll become farmers together, bro. Come on.
We got to talk to my wife. She said she was going to come on the podcast. I'm going to tell her we're going to talk about Texas.
Come on, we'll be farmers, cowboys.
Yeah,
that's it.
I know. Could be the life. It's going to get interesting because we're going to go from this and we're going to rewind. I
can't even see it. What does it say?
20 and out.
Oh, okay.
But we're going to rewind to facial. So now I've got my videos out there. You see my videos. I talk about a lot of things that happened to me. You've seen and heard of what happened with my paperwork. Somebody else kind of took credit for things that I did and cases that other people did. And my words went right on this guy's paperwork. Nevertheless, it probably didn't matter. It was nepotism and the chief he knew. Yeah. But still could definitely damage, your career and definitely affected me mentally. And
The motivations,
the motivation
kills-
was gone. And
yeah.
now when I presented this to him that I knew, the animosity towards me from him and the rest of the office was out of control because I knew the dark shit that they were doing, right?
Behind your back. You
Behind my back.
pulled the curtains.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I revealed all the corruption. So now what I don't talk about in that video is what happened to me last March. And you know, I'm not going to go into it too much, but I'm going to hit it a little bit because you heard what happened and you know about the ratting. And would you say it's something that happens in most squads in the city?
All the time, bro.
Absolutely.
All the
You've
time.
seen it. You've literally seen it.
All the times. Not even IB's not even part of the question. Nobody even talks. Nobody even brings that up to call IAB on because you got into an argument. Bro, we had a guy get into a pushing match with another guy. They're both old timers. One guy is 27 years on, the other guy 20 years on. The guy came from IAB and still didn't. They went into actually fists. You know what I mean? And of course, me being the guy in the middle almost got knocked out, trying to push them apart.
Like always.
Guess what? Even the IAB guy did not even call on that other guy.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? He came from IAB, and he didn't make that call because he knows. Listen, this is the squad. It's a different world, and I respect him for that. Think about it. He knows what he could do. He still has the connections with an IAB. He could have easily made that phone call and ruined this guy's 27-year career. I'm not saying get fired or whatever, but put him through hell. You know what I'm saying? Force him to retire or whatever it is. He didn't. And that's why I was shocked when you told me that what happened with you. I'm like, bro, this doesn't, and I'm sure you heard it from so many other people. This doesn't happen. It's not like
from the union.
It's not like you knocked the guy out and he had to be hospitalized or anything.
You know, I didn't punch the guy in the face.
That's what I'm saying.
Nobody got hurt. Nobody got hurt. You know,
his feelings got hurt.
His feelings got hurt, but he actually told me, "What are you going to do about it?" And I like to say he got exactly what he deserved, and that's where I'll leave it. But at the end of the day, the fucking kid said, and when I say fucking kid, the guy's 50-something years old. So he's not a kid. He knows what he's doing. He asked for it, and he got what he asked for. And to be ratted out and even enticed by a guy that was closer in age to my father than me really fucking pisses me off. You know, but you had to deal with me for those 5 months, and every time I'm with you, I'm asking you your opinion. I'm asking you, what do you think about this? And you and a lot of people, including my wife, my family, my friends at work, everybody was kind of just like, you know what? We're at the end of the road. Just leave it alone. Deal with real time. But I kept fighting because that's what I do in the NYPD. I just fight and fight and fight. So I kept going. And what would you think? You know, what would you say about those 5 months that you were working with me in transit? How did I feel?
You felt betrayed, bro. This job, you know, they betrayed you based on something that small. How they, like you said, facial is not, you know, you got to know what you're doing. And the amount of identifications you did and everything like that, that went out the window with them. They didn't care. And I told you during those 5 months, they don't care because you kept telling people you're retiring exactly at 20 years. I said, you shouldn't tell anybody that you're retiring. Because right away, even though you're a harder worker than him or whatever, they're saying, okay, once this guy leaves, this guy is still going to be here. This guy is leaving in 5 months or whatever it is, in 6 months, you know, within a year, he's leaving. You know what I mean? And I think that also, I don't know if, you know, I think that also gave him the push to be on that guy's side and to transfer you at that time. You know what I mean?
I mean,
that's why, and I told you a million times, from promotions, all this kind of stuff, you cannot tell these bosses that you're leaving exactly when you're leaving, you know?
Definitely a mistake that I made. You can't be honest. And that's a terrible thing in a law enforcement career, that you can't be honest. Like, what kind of department were we working under that you can't be honest? But I won't even say that he wasn't a hard worker, the guy. He is a hard worker. But the difference is this. I'm a great detective. he's good at his job, and that's where it ends. He wasn't a detective, in my opinion. He was a juvenile crime cop that did the ass kissing and got to know people, and he moved on to the investigative side like so many others did. They do 18 months there, and then they, depending on how much ass kissing they do and who likes them, they get the option to go to facial, or they get the option to go to smart or the VIG unit. And it's a shame because I don't want to discredit the amount of work. The guy will work. He'll type all day. He barely stands up because I don't know if it's because he's old or because he's just, trying to type fast. But I could tell you this. When it came to the cases that wasn't just software matches, where you dragged an image and dropped it, several times I was able to take his no match and find the guy. There was cases where all he had to do was reach out to the complainant and ask the complainant, do you have a better photo? And that's all it was. Something maybe the squad should have did also, they want to make sure to send the best photo to FIS, but you're a detective. You can do those things when the squad, they don't have time to do certain things. So sometimes you have to do it. And I had cases like that. I brought those cases to the attentions of the supervisors when I felt it was necessary, because I didn't just like to take somebody's case. I was very into case management. I didn't want nobody fucking with my case, so I'm not going to fuck with theirs. And, so I would bring it to the boss's attention and have him correct it and do his match the right way. Years before that, I used to go directly to him or somebody else in the office, whoever I was trying to help, but they kind of got annoyed when I would try to help them. So, I stopped dealing with them completely. Yeah. But there isn't a person in that office that I didn't help. And my direct supervisor, I'm not going to name him, but you know who he was. Good guy, knew a lot about, what was going on. But as a boss, he had to kind of remain neutral. And I understand that. But at the same time, I also feel that in this situation, sometimes you need a boss to step up and kind of maintain the order of the environment. And it was just not enough transparency and being a good detective versus you're up here because of nepotism. Sit back, know your fucking role. And this kid was just, at the end, he was just a rat. And I described the shit the other guy did. There was other people, like the whole day tours was kind of like a mutiny against me because I love doing facial recognition. But all right, those 5 months pass. Now I'm at the end. We're literally at transit when people are telling me that it's not going to happen. You were next to me when a coworker reached out to me and says, yeah, I don't think the chief's going to do it. It's a tough ask or whatever. Now I found out that was all bullshit. And we kind of thought that at the time, that never happened. The next day, my CO, he had told me to get a chief. And I even asked you, like, who could I call? And I'm reaching out and I'm doing everything I could. And I finally got somebody that would help me. And still had to get the union involved. Now my CO is telling me to have this chief call another chief, and all for this little incident.
Yeah.
And then I got it done. And it was definitely the greatest part of my career when I did that. I mean, I think you've seen a difference between me after August.
Of course, man.
I was finally happy again.
Look, people, yeah, exactly. So people finally realize, you're somebody to fight for. You know what I mean?
Right.
They know it shouldn't have even gotten to that point, but since it got to that point, how many people called for you? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And,
so people did go to bat for you, and they knew that, your worth, and they knew that, you didn't really do anything wrong based on in their eyes. Because I'm sure the people you called have over 20 years on or whatever it is. And, they've seen pushing matches. They've seen people actually fight. And it never got to this point. This is what's wrong with this job. It became something like this, ended up being where somebody could get transferred from their position for something so stupid.
The chief himself told me, I want you... when I thanked him, he said, No, thank you. You have a hell of a reputation, and I want you to kill the queue. Just don't kill anybody in the office. And it was such satisfaction. And I started doing cases that very day. And I went right back to it. I started working from home again. I even did a match while we were at transit.
Yeah.
So it it was a great ending. And at that time, it was also great for me because you had just gotten promoted. So we were able to share that together at transit, and it was a good thing.
Yeah.
Did your bosses hurt you in any similar fashion to the stories that I've told you about the bosses I've dealt with?
No,
Not at all. Not even close.
bro. Not even close. And I used to complain to you about some bullshit in the office and stuff like that,
Mhm.
but I got lucky, and again, it's the bosses that I had, which from the time I went to the squad, I had 1, 2, 3, about 4 COs, and of
Mhm.
course some XOs here and there. Always got along with each other. Nobody ever went out to try to hurt you. Of course, there's drama in the office or whatever it is. People fight, like again, And the thing is, you close the boss's office door, and we handle it ourselves. If the boss is in that day, you know what I mean?
Right.
We talk it amongst each other. We go in the back office, and that's what I liked about the squad work. If you don't like a certain thing, you don't have to go running into the boss's office and rat somebody out. And I think once you get to that point,
Mhm.
you can't blame the bosses, because if somebody comes rats to you, if you don't take the steps that you're supposed to take, then you're in trouble. You know what I
Right.
mean? So
Yeah.
it's the cop. It's the cop that actually had to bring it to the boss's attention.
It's funny you say that too, because the boss that ultimately called IAB on me, that same day he was shaking my hand, telling me about the divorce he was going through. Mike, I'm nothing like the old guy. I'm a good guy. And the next day, not even a couple hours later, he's calling IAB on me. And the funny thing about that is, hold on, Mike's over here. All right, Mike.
Sorry, guys.
What's going on, Mike? Tell us about the old anti-crime days.
Listen, it was a great time. I mean, it was legit. I would say, when it's not what you have. You had to earn your stripes to get the crime. You had to be active. You just didn't have to basically know someone. And people actually found that position, at a high value, not what it is this day and age.
Yeah. How was it working with me?
It's a hell of a time. We had a great time. We got into stuff, but we got the job done. It was, you were always on. You were more of the brains of the operation, I could say.
T, would you agree with that? Was I more the brains of the operation?
Absolutely, with all of us, bro. Not for nothing.
You think? You think? I know I was definitely a crazy motherfucker when it came to the fighting part, but the brains, I don't know. But thank you.
You're good. You're good at articulating. You articulate us out of trouble. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, that's definitely something that I had to learn right away. Probably because I got into the most trouble until Mike came along.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, I mean, one hand washes the other, brother. I got to take the load off you sometimes,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mike, you remember anything? How was it to be with me and Awad and DR at the wedding? Fun times, right?
Dude, it was good times, and honestly, this might sound like a little stupid, but like almost of like coming of age. Like, damn, like we were a bunch of knuckleheads running around in plain clothes, doing stupid stuff, and all these years later, man, we're all on like on a beautiful, it was, to me, like a little cool / emotional at the same time.
Right.
Yep. Feel the same way, bro.
We became a family.
Yep.
And
Yeah, basically.
First and foremost, I thank you for being a friend. First came on the job, I was lost as a rookie. That was my first partner, and a real partner. Took me under his wing, showed me a lot of shit. Overall, I have no complaints about you. Great guy.
Thank you.
All right, but now to the fun part.
Oh yeah.
Me and this kid did a lot of crazy shit together.
No.
From running over snow piles, imagining exes' faces,
Yeah.
and couple girls to bedrooms, same bed.
Yeah.
All right. Love this kid more than he even knows. We have ups and downs just like families do. We fight, we argue, we bitch. But you know what? At the end of the day, we're all here to celebrate for you. That's it, man. You know what she is?
Beautiful.
That's what I was telling Mike before. No matter how much we hate this job, Mike, they're both Mikes. I don't know. I should just call you Joker since that's what you named yourself.
Joker.
But what I was telling Mike before was basically this job sucks in a lot of ways, certain things. But guess what? I would have never known you or him or anybody on this job, and that's the benefit of this job. You get a second family. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's a big plus besides the retirement, 20 years or whatever it is.
Mike, you're like a brother to me, bro. Congratulations on your fucking wedding. About time. You're not 21 anymore. I remember when you came out.
How you like that video?
Nice video, bro.
Good times.
Nice video. Good times, bro. It was fucking awesome working with you. We fucking did crazy shit.
Who stay out there the longest?
You look back at it, you're like fucking risking our lives for this fucking job, but at the same time, I couldn't have done it with anybody else but you, bro. You're like a fucking brother.
Bro.
Like I said, we would die together. We're fucking brothers forever, bro.
That's right.
No matter what.
Wild Boys.
And congratulations on the fucking wedding, and best of luck, man.
Wild Boys. And who can stay out the longest in the cold?
Mike, that's it. Mike fucking give me that.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. I mean, even for me making the move from Queens to Long Island, it was really based on like the family I actually met on this job. That's how I got familiar with Long Island. All these guys I used to work with lived out east, and now we're all grown up, all have kids and all this other stuff. So it's not more of a hangout, but that's how I got associated with Long Island. I mean, but as much crap as I talk and been through on this job, I mean, it still is like my closest set of friends to this day are majority people from this job.
Yep, that's what I tell people, man.
Mike? Isn't it funny that when we started, I was 21, and now we're sitting here a bunch of old men, 41 and up.
Yeah, no, it's definitely times, man. I mean, I look at it when I see like these movies and stories. It's like, oh yeah, you're that guy. Now I'm that guy that they talk about, that 20-year vet and old angry guy.
Yep.
And we're over here doing podcasts.
But time does fly, man.
Yeah. And
Definitely. You guys are living your best life. I mean, basically, I'm happy for both of you guys as guys I worked with that you guys are on the other side.
Now the funny thing is, you see, you guys weren't together long enough, but I don't know who was on that bed more, T or Mike. You guys, it would have been an interesting match because
we had two. Remember, we had two of them.
Well, later on,
we had the couch and the bed.
Yeah, the couch and the bed, man. Oh man, because Mike would already be on it by the time you came in, T.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, the times of being young and coming to work at like 5 o'clock in the morning for no reason. Yeah.
Yeah, it's clear now.
Like I said, we all grew up on this job, so I'm just glad to see, people I care about became family, doing the thing. That's it.
Mike, what do you think about the bosses and the cops that I had to deal with the last couple of years? You heard a lot of the stories, especially last year.
The best way I could put it, cowards.
Thank you. That's all. That's the way I like to describe it. It only takes one word. And again, you're just hearing my stories. So
yeah, I mean, like I saw a lot of dark side of things, as you guys know my history, but it's just what you had to deal with, man. Was not cool at all, man. A lot of grimy and cowardly acts are done.
Right, especially you could say that because you're in the squad, and you know how a squad is supposed to be a family.
100%.
Right, and definitely you probably even thought I should probably just give up myself. I told T the same thing. Like a lot of people were trying to tell me to just give up. I'm at the end of the road anyway, so what's the big deal? But I kept fighting it because you know how I am. I'm a fighter.
Yeah. I mean, knowing your personality, I wouldn't have said use the word give up. I was afraid other actions might happen, to be honest with you.
One of the toughest motherfuckers I know. If I'm in a fucking dark alley, he's the first person I'm gonna call, regardless of what's the situation.
Ex fat about that. 1 punch shame.
Now we all know either we either were on the court with him, on the ball field, or in the streets working with him. Obviously, one of the toughest motherfuckers we know. If you're the biggest motherfucker, he'll come up to you and punch you right in the mouth.
Yeah.
And that's what I fucking love about him. He doesn't care. He doesn't care.
Beautiful.
Now,
but yeah,
Happy it all did work out in the end, I guess.
Yeah, it was definitely a happy time. I think everybody's seen that I was a lot happier after August last year. But we too got to work transit together. It was great to see Robin Post fly again.
yeah.
And that was the first time in 17 years that we got to work together.
Yeah, no, definitely was a good time, man. I mean, didn't think it was gonna happen, but we made it happen. To the good old transit system.
Yeah, right. It got pretty big. 350 people.
Yeah.
It's working. I mean,
Chat that we're in, people actually reach out to me and thank me for posting stuff and saying certain things. And a lot of people have thanked me for putting up these videos and Instagram posts and all this stuff. So for somebody that wasn't always so sociable with members of the service, I'm actually helping people now. Other detectives and other cops. So that's a good feeling.
yeah, man. No, it definitely is. It's a good outlet. I mean, and it works, man. It helps. Trust me. Not definitely,
Robin.
guys. Thank you for having me. Enjoy. Be safe out there.
Later, Mikey.
Hold on, real quick. I wanted to put this up here. If you look on the screen, 7-8 Precinct Anti-Crime Team, 2007 to 2013, the Wild Boys. This is where it all started. 3 of us, Steve, and 1 or 2 other guys that used to come and go, especially rest in peace, Rob Cedeno.
Speech, Robbie.
Yeah. But thanks for jumping on, Mike. We'll talk later.
Later, Mike.
Nah, definitely, man. Thank you for having me. You guys be safe.
Later, Mike.
Later.
All right, brother.
That was cool.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was talking about that sergeant that called IAB on me. He was my friend at that moment, and then he calls IAB on me, and it is what it is. And it's not even that he called right away, T. It's that he sent you got to see this email. I wish somebody would foil this fucking email. It's a fabricated version of what happened. It's very dramatic. The guy should have got a fucking award for writing it. And he sends it to the 2 lieutenants who we know at that point have to send it up. I think knowing those lieutenants, they probably could have just spoke to me and the other people involved, but they didn't. And I guess that's understandable, but I not respectable. Yeah. So they sent it up to the CO. In return, he was told to call IAB. It is what it is. But the next day that I see him, he looks at me and says, "Hey, Mike, how's everything? What's going on?" With a smile on his fucking face. And I'm not going to handle that very well, right? I just fucking stared at him like I wanted to fucking devour his heart. And I did. But what really burnt me about that was I told Z what was going to happen. I says, you know what? Before you find out, I'm going to tell you what happened because he's going to say I was discourteous. And sure as shit, he already fucking knew because this guy told the lieutenant, Mike didn't say hi to me. He's discourteous. Fuck you. Nowhere in our job are we required to say hello to anybody, right or wrong?
Yep. You're right.
So for the rest of my and would you do that? Like after calling IAB on somebody, you're gonna go and say, hey, how's everything? What's going on? Fuck you.
That's the problem. Yeah, that's the problem with this job. They think, especially like you said, he's a supervisor. He thinks that you have to stay courteous to him.
Absolutely.
No matter even after. Listen, you didn't curse him out. You didn't say anything. It's better to stay quiet sometimes. So that's right. It. You didn't say shit to him. You didn't have to say hi to him. Why? You know what I mean? It's not. I don't know,
but
that's weird.
He had a lot to say. He had a lot to say that day, not to me, and he still has a lot to say. And him and his, that's the girl bully. I call him the girl bully, and the Fusus Fony, who Those are the two nicknames I give them. They're still talking about me till this day. And I would like to shut their mouths. I'll gladly take them to Smoker. You know how I am. I'll gladly, invite them to my house. We'll all of us could hang out. We could have a cup of coffee. But they don't want to talk like men, or they don't want to act like men. They want to just keep talking to other detectives that have nothing to do with any of this about the things that I'm doing.
Yeah, of course.
But we've seen that our whole career.
Yeah.
And you know that I really disliked my original facial identification supervisor, right? You remember the stories I tell you about him?
Yeah.
I used to say I was going to go when I retired and I can kick his fucking ass. And you seen the actual video. Are you surprised to see me do something like that?
No, not at all. Listen, if that's what you were looking for, you're retired now. He's retired. It is what it is. And listen, if you want it, he's the one that, he actually said.
His words were, I don't want to lose my pension, but when when we're retired, if you see me and I see you. Yeah. So I made sure that I went up to him and says, you see me, I see you. Well, here I am. If you're such a fucking tough guy, well, then here we are. Here's your opportunity. Yeah. If it was the other way around, and I don't care if the guy was wearing a camera or not, I fucking break his fucking jaw. You come to my fucking house looking for me, I'm not going to handle that well. And he's another one. I could meet up with that guy any time of the week.
But that alone is a threat to begin with, of him saying, you see me, I see you when I'm retired.
Absolutely.
That's a threat.
I agree. And I also think when you tell somebody, what are you going to do about it? Like Sammy the Rat told me.
That's a threat.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a threat, and it could be articulated that way. But I didn't even mention that he said that to me during the interviews and everything, because I'm not a fucking rat. But lastly, T, are you glad you were retired?
100%, bro. And I'm glad you pushed me to retire. I'm glad they cut the overtime, because I would have still been right now. What's today? Wednesday? No, I would have been working regular, but I would have been hoping for some, transit on the weekends. You know how we killed it at the end of the last year. We didn't even see our family the last year, so
absolutely,
it is what it is. Everything happens for a reason, man.
Would you do it all over again?
Yes.
You would have did it.
I know you don't want to hear that. What job?
Yeah, the whole career. Would you, if you go back in time, would you do it all over again?
Yes, I would. I think this job, even though we hit some rough patches and stuff like that, maybe all over again, I would do it different. But
you started.
This job did give us opportunities that I think it's it has its benefits. It has its benefits.
Absolutely.
The pay wise, again, like I said, if it wasn't for this job, I wouldn't have got to meet so many good people and got to know so many people. At the same time, what kind of job, you're going to get where you could actually help people, you know what I mean? My arrests, the investigations I did in the squad and even in crime and stuff like that. It's a big thing when, I'm a strong believer that, it's cops are the angels of, of the earth, you know what I mean? Who's gonna look out for the weak, you know what I mean? And who's gonna try to get justice, even though they walk out the next day, the court system is all screwed up, but that's another story, you know what I mean? But at least, we pour people to justice and help victims out. So I think I would do it again, maybe a different way or whatnot, but I think I would do it again.
When you started this job, you were 27. If you were 27 today in 2025, would you still do it again?
No.
Now with this environment.
After knowing what I know now, of how the city doesn't care about you, how they'll throw you under the bus for nothing. No respect for the police. It's not, nobody cares for you anymore, and it's not, it doesn't give you the motivation to want to join. I think, like my son, he's 18 and he asked me, I was like, do not get on this job. So if I wouldn't want my son to get on this job, it's not the same job. You know what I mean? And it's changing forget about every year, every couple months, this job changes. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I don't think I'll do it again in 2025 how it is. I think I will do it the way it was back then. Of course, you know, the way we were in crime and all this kind of stuff. But now it's, you know, certain things, you know, the city turns their back on you. And
in one of my other videos, I say I don't think I would do it again because now I think I lost too much of who I was mentally. Not to say I didn't benefit as well, but I always find myself kind of yearning to be who I was before I was damaged by this job. And
yeah, it takes a toll on you, man.
It took a toll on me.
Yeah, it takes a toll on anybody.
I'm glad that financially, you know, we did great. If it wasn't for you, my pension wouldn't be as good because I wasn't doing transit with just anybody. I really believe that you should be safe with somebody that you feel comfortable with. And I wouldn't work with just the average cop because the average cop is not safe. The average cop doesn't think about tactics. And I knew with you, I didn't have to worry about that. You know, we had a great chemistry. So I don't know if I would do it all over again. I don't think I would. Definitely not in this era. But
yeah, this era, no way. This era, like again, I wouldn't get back on this job. I wouldn't give advice for people to get on this job.
Is there anything that would have made you stay?
Made me stay?
Yeah.
No, because like again, I was a 25-year guy, but I was lucky to be able to, you know, crush my last couple of years in doing overtime where it made up for those years.
Right.
And I wouldn't stay. Not now.
The only thing, you know, I was definitely 20 and out from day one. We touched that. But the only thing that I think maybe would have made me stay is if it wasn't so hard to transfer, especially like small transfers, maybe if I would have been able to work with you, probably not in the squad. I think that would have been a little different for me after being away from the squad so long. But if we would have got to go to Intel and do something together,
something different, yeah,
right? Maybe, you know, it should be a little easier, especially we were detectives for 10 years. Like, what are we not qualified to do? Because every unit has some rookie, some nepotism-based transfer that didn't know anything and now is in that unit for a long time. So why wouldn't we be able to do something like that?
That's another problem, yeah.
You shouldn't have to ask your CO for a rec because the guy was telling me to get a chief, so God knows if he would have fucking gave me one. You know, you shouldn't have to go on ridiculous interviews when they're just taking people with 3 years on. You know, it should be an easier process. And maybe I would have stayed that way. You know, and again, maybe even if Mike could have joined us or something, like, you know, there should be more a proactive police department for partners and people that feel, you know, comfortable to work together, even for details. Like, even when I was forced to sit in East New York, why couldn't you and I go together? Like, why do I have to work with somebody from my command? You're going to get a detail next month, maybe. So why not just orchestrate it better?
Yeah.
You know, I don't know.
That's why I liked about the transit thing, that you could volunteer the same place and we could work together and we know who we're working with, you know?
I think the transit app was the best thing that they came out with in the last 20 years. Thank you, T. This was an awesome fucking interview.
Yeah, man. It went better than I thought. So
see, you know, it's a good thing. You got to start watching the Finest and Unfiltered show because
I watched some of the clips of it. Yeah, I do.
It keeps you involved a little bit. Alrighty, T. Thank you. We'll be send you the link. Bye, T. Yay. And that's it. Thank you for tuning into the Vendetta Blue Show. Till next time, Wild Boys.
That tonight's gonna be a good, good night. Tonight, let me know. I got my mom.
Help! God help! I love him. Oh! Wait till you guys are going on vacation. Oh my God!
I go on vacation
near the year. Everybody's getting rid of it. Easy to take one.
Me.
You?
Yeah.
Oh. Well, I was playing the whole week.